wanted to use really short.
How did I come to know Jesus? Well, my mother used to be a preacher, and her mom is a woman of great faith. And my brother, Pastor Donnie McClurkin, he's known Jesus since day one. And so there was always, God in our household. Whether we were all living right or whether we were all living like the devil, God was always in the fabric of our upbringing. And, going to church on a regular basis, being brought to church, being a part of, the choir and everything, we always heard about Jesus. We always had, that whole connection to faith. But me coming to know Jesus came about when I was maybe in my 20s. And I had dedicated my life to the Lord and backslid, and dedicate my life to the Lord and backslid. And the last time I backslid, there were a couple of instances where I was in the room one day, and I heard Donnie talking to my mother. And I think some of my siblings were gathered around, and he was talking about heaven. And it intrigued me to such a degree because he talked about heaven as if he had been there. And, he was only going by the accounts of the word, about, descriptions of heaven, streets of gold and walls of jasper, and on and on and on. And it intrigued me so much, and it kind of piqued my interest. And, and the Lord knows what he's doing. He puts things in your path that will draw you to him. And that kind of stuck with me. And then as I was kind of living my life the way I wanted to, right before I gave my heart to the Lord, I was talking to one of the saints of the church, and we had a little conversation, about nothing at all. And at the end of the conversation, she said, "Now be careful out there. I want you to be careful." And I kind of blew it off. And then I talked to someone else some weeks later, and we had a little conversation, one of the saints at the church. And at the end of the conversation, she said the same thing. And 2 + 2 made 4 to me. I took it as like a warning from the Lord, And shortly after that, I gave my heart to the Lord. So the progression was long and drawn out. And, I learned a lot. I bumped my head and fell down and scraped my knees spiritually in that journey. But the end result was, giving my heart to the Lord. My CD is entitled Higher, and the songs were inspired by real life. Case in point, I have a song that is entitled He Is Good. And I started writing it when my sister, who passed away in 2008 of breast cancer, right before she passed, a couple of months before she passed. And one of the lines of the song, it said, "Even if I lose a loved one." And after she passed, I changed it to "Even though I've lost a loved one." And a year later, Donnie took the whole family to Italy to kind of mend and regroup and try to come to grips with the loss of my sister. And my mother had a seizure, and she had blood clots on her lungs, and she had to stay in the hospital for a month there in Italy. And so the Lord gave me the chorus to that song. And then fast forward to many years later, when my mother passed away, I sang it at her funeral. So that's how that song came about. And there's a song that on my CD that's called Always on Time. And we as Christians and believers, sometimes we try to make it seem like we never lack, or we never have a need, or we have more than enough and everything is great and we're skipped to my looing, my darling, on our way to heaven. But the reality of it is we do have lack. Sometimes we are despondent, we are in despair, sometimes we don't have enough. And the opening line of that song says, "There have been times when I didn't have a dime and I didn't tell nobody but the Lord." And and that was just real life. And that, or when you're sick, or when you are, the doctor is giving you a report that, is contrary to, what you want it to be, and you have to use your faith to kind of get out of it. That's what that song is. It's encouraging you that Jesus is always on time. Even if it's the 11th hour, he will always be on time. He will always give you what you need. He will always, make things right in your life. And so those songs and the songs on my CD, they are all inspired by real life living.